Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I am excited because we have launched our board membership here at the Colorado Business Roundtable. And so I am going to be focusing all week long with many different COBRT board members. But before I get into that, learn more about the board membership and maybe how you can get involved at COBRT.com. Also check out our radio page while you're there, our events page, and sign up for the many events that we have going on with multiple partners throughout Colorado. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into today's show with David Eddy. He is with Boeing. He is the Colorado Site Director for Boeing Space Systems. How are you doing, David?
Fantastic. Glad to be here.
Yes, we're so happy to have you. And so we just launched the COBRT board membership in this last quarter, the third quarter of 2018. And I know you guys are working on some great stuff. But before we get into that, let's talk about you. Let's find out what has made Dave tick.
Well, thank you. I've been with Boeing for 30 years.
Wow, okay.
Which is kind of unique in this day and age, especially, I think, as I hire more individuals and see a lot of times, especially the millennials, looking to find their niche. And so when people ask me how long I've been with Boeing and I tell them 30 years, I always get that, oh, wow, that's a long time.
It is. That's a marriage.
But to that, I started out of college back in Huntington Beach, working for Missile Systems Group there, where we did a lot of manufacturing. And from there, I transitioned to a couple of proprietary programs, did a little stint out in Denver, and then was coaxed back to Southern California. So I spent probably, of the 30 years, a good 18 to 20 in Southern California, working in Seal Beach and Huntington Beach.
And Colorado hasn't been too stiff of a change for you, and obviously you've been here before, so you know the ebbs and flows of the seasons, right?
You bet, you bet. About 8 years ago, we were working with Raytheon on a proposal for GPS OCX, which is the next generation of ground software that's being built for the GPS-3 satellites. And so I came out to help with that proposal. We ended up winning it along with Raytheon, and then they asked me if I'd be willing to move to Colorado and run the program. And so I made that transition back in 2010. Came out here. Life is definitely 55 miles an hour, which I enjoy a great deal. I'm still not real used to the cold. Being an avid golfer, you can imagine Southern California any day
of the year that you wanted to go, yeah.
That's right. So, but I really enjoy living in Colorado. It's a fantastic place to work. Colorado is such a technical leader in many, many areas, not just aerospace. So the people that we bring on board and hire at the Boeing company fit very well with the Colorado institutions here in the state, as well as the military. A lot of ex-military come out, especially in the Colorado Springs area. Most of those folks have clearances, which a lot of the work that we do here in Colorado require. So it's really been an excellent 8 years, and I'm looking forward to a few more.
Wonderful. We will be happy to have you here. You mentioned that we're a technical leader, and that's big for a Californian to say, actually. And I realize you come from Southern California, not quite the Silicon Valley area, but it's a huge compliment to hear that we're on our way technical leadership-wise.
You bet. So the data, and I sit on a few other boards in the Colorado region, but the data just recently released from 2017, Colorado is the #1 aerospace per capita. #2, obviously, to California, but they have way too many people, so that's really, we think of ourselves as #1. And so, when you have that type of reputation, and the impact to not just the Colorado local economy, but to our nation, it's very satisfying.
It is very satisfying, and I think Colorado is definitely one of the underappreciated States when it comes to aerospace industry altogether.
You bet.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Boeing, because we mentioned a lot of space systems and particularly the aerospace industry. But when I think of Boeing, personally, I always tend to think about airplanes, right? I tend to think more on the aviation side. So I feel like maybe, not that it goes unnoticed, Boeing is a big name within the aerospace industry, quite certainly. But let's talk a little bit about the aerospace side of Boeing as opposed to aviation side.
You bet. So historically, Boeing's been a 50-50, 50% commercial aircraft and 50% defense. With the ebb and flows of what's gone on in the past, I'll say 10 to 15, 20 years, if you can imagine, after 2001, nobody wanted to get on an airplane. But at the same time, the defense industry was ramping up very significantly because of the Middle East conflicts. So then you move forward within the last maybe 5 to 10 years, and sequestration manifests itself. And so then the defense budgets tend to shrink, but commercial aircraft is now big around the world. So if we look at our little niche here in Colorado, we have about 1,800 employees. Most of those are with a subsidiary called Jeppesen, you may be familiar with.
Might have heard of that.
Yeah. So they're over in Inglewood, and they have about probably 1,400 Boeing employees. The other 400 are made up of 3 locations here in Colorado. There's the Aurora site right out here at Peña and I-70, where we do a lot of different system engineering, software development kind of activities, as well as some proprietary programs. Then we have a cadre of folks over at Buckley supporting our nation's assets there. And then if you move down to Colorado Springs, we have our field marketing office right off 25 there next to the Rodeo Hall of Fame. That gives you a landmark. And then down closer to Buckley and Schriever, we have what we call the BMOSC, which is the Boeing Operation Satellite Control Office, where we support GPS, WGS, and SBSS, which is space-based surveillance. So we have folks working both at Schriever and Peterson supporting those assets, and then a variety of system engineering and other programs right there in Colorado Springs.
Wow. And so now you're Colorado site director. So
Correct.
Do you play an eminent role in all of these locations?
I do. So anything that has to do with the facility side of it, the people side of it, inclement weather policies, all the kind of people stuff. I'm involved in facilities planning, growth, reduction in some cases. So all that kind of stuff is in my job jar.
All right. What can you tell us about what you've currently got going on project-wise? And certainly, by no means, I don't want to get you in any trouble with any bosses or anything like that, so reveal what you can.
Absolutely. So it's an exciting time. Just within the last 3 months, the Boeing company's won 3 significant programs at the national level. So we have the Huey follow-on that's going to be done out in Philadelphia. That probably won't have any impact to us here in Colorado. But the 2 other programs, the MQ-25, which is the unmanned drone program, and then just a couple weeks ago, the TX trainer. Both of those programs are actually run out of St. Louis, but there's a significant amount of work. And with the technical expertise we have here in Colorado with software development, cleared personnel, that type of thing, there is a lot of opportunity for us to get some of that work from within the Boeing program management activities. The other area of emphasis has been really down in the Colorado Springs in space-based surveillance. So a lot of that stuff we can't talk about, but there is quite a bit of opportunity as the government and our nation's leaders look to consolidate some of the management activities that go along with managing space. Space is now really the new frontier. It's not one of those areas that I grew up used to thinking about from a standpoint of there being competitors and adversaries in space, but that's where we're headed.
Wonderful. I have to ask you, in the 30 years that you've been with Boeing, what has been your favorite, I don't want to say trend, because I don't feel like that's the right word, but I guess favorite thing that's come out of your tenure there?
Great question.
I know it's a tough one.
There's probably two, if I can give you two. One is not related to really my area of expertise or my career, but it has to do with the commercial airplanes and the movement towards building airplanes out of composites. So many times when I'm around talking to kids in high schools and any STEM-related activities, I ask them, if I would have asked you 10 years ago if you would get on an airplane made out of plastic, what would you have said?
Heck no.
Exactly. So that transition that I've seen within our company has really been innovation at its finest, making airplanes now out of plastic, if you will. Now, granted, composite is much stronger than aluminum, and you get into all that techie stuff. The other piece, I think, has to do with the cyber aspect of it. So much of the information that we produce, and not just on the airplane side, but on the defense side, our adversaries are after that information. And so being able to protect that information, coming up with innovative ways to segregate and keep that information from our adversaries, I've seen a huge movement towards protecting data and protecting our employees and the information that they develop on a day-to-day basis. So that has been really, I think, the most motivating and satisfying piece of the work that I've been doing for Boeing.
Awesome. Yeah, and cybersecurity is, I think it's a lot broader than what people are giving it credit for.
Absolutely.
And we actually have a very exciting event coming up October 30th. We've partnered with CSU Global for a cybersecurity event. Surrounding that, we're going to have speakers from Deloitte, IBM, AT&T, and Microsoft at that event. And that will be taking place at History, Colorado, October 30th at 7 a.m. You should join us for that if you don't already have your ticket.
I'll check my calendar for sure.
Well, let's talk about the main reason that I brought you in here today, and that is that you are on our board of directors for the Colorado Business Roundtable. So first of all, thank you. It is a pleasure to have you on board with that, and as you know, aerospace is a huge industry within Colorado. We've mentioned that, number one, again, per capita in the States, and so I'm excited to have you be a part of this on the aerospace level. Let's talk about why you think it's a good partnership and what we are doing with Boeing to help you guys out, well as you helping us.
So Jeff's a great guy. I got to say that up front.
See, I wish you were going to say some mean things about him. No, he is wonderful.
He's a great guy, and I've enjoyed getting to know him much better. And in some cases, our paths have crossed in areas that I never would have thought Jeff would pop up. But he's a great guy. Probably first and foremost, COBRT, if I can use the acronym, since we're in aerospace, please. All I speak is in acronyms, it seems like. Their support for our Import-Export Bank initiative that we have really worked very hard in trying to get the Import-Export Bank fully authorized and seated back in our nation's capital. Colorado-based companies in the Import-Export Bank arena have exports totaling about $121 million from 2014 to 2018. And the bank, unaffectionately from our perspective, has been called the Bank of Boeing. That's really not the case. When you look at what the bank supports, over 80% of the transactions are done with small to medium business. So what that allows these mom and pops, in some cases, shops allow them to do is be able to build parts and have those parts go be integrated as part of a bigger
bigger picture.
No, bigger. What am I trying to say here? Their particular manufacturing items go and are integrated into a bigger product that's delivered overseas, and so that allows them an opportunity to do that. Without the Import-Export Bank, that business doesn't exist.
Okay. With you.
Yes. The other part, COBRT has been really an invaluable player in support of not just aerospace and defense, but also in the job market within Colorado. So when we look at the information In fact, they just completed a sector-related employment evaluation in 2017, and 247,000 jobs and DoD contracts, both prime and subprime, total around $6.5 billion just in the state of Colorado. So the economic impact of aerospace companies, not just Boeing, is fairly significant to our state's economy, and COBRT has been a huge supporter of that effort. So those are probably two of the ones that jump to my mind that quickly.
Wonderful. And I'm glad that we were able to provide that support for you. I do want to go back to this Import-Export Bank, though, and one of the reasons that we have such a large aerospace footprint here in Colorado is because of the small manufacturing businesses, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's huge for them. And we're talking 8 employees, right? And
right.
So they contribute to that aerospace that you guys contract through.
Absolutely. And commercial aircraft is a big part of that, but also military aircraft now. So just within the past, I'd say 5 to 8 years, our ability and other companies in the region's ability to sell products overseas to our allies up until that point was prohibited, right? Mm-hmm. We were not willing to share any of our technology, even with our allies. But I think as we've become more global, and whether it's with NATO or other allies, we needed to help out those individuals with some of the products that we had and some of our technology. And so having the Import-Export Bank be the quote-unquote financer for that really allows the small and medium business to contribute to those contracts. Otherwise, if there was no products to be made, they would not have any business to support.
Exactly. I don't think I realized that about the defense contracts, that it's been fairly recent that those have been able to be drawn by public
Correct.
companies.
Military foreign sales is a fairly new market.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about why you decided that COBRT would be a good relationship, and maybe why other people would be interested.
Sure. So first, the networking aspect of it is phenomenal. As you might imagine, most of my networking opportunities either in the aerospace arena, where I meet and see the fairly same number of faces at different events. Yeah. The other aspect of it is, I think, access to the state and local leaders. So being able to be part of COBRT and, I don't know if I use the word leverage, but network with those individuals that are, especially at the national level, our senators and congressmen and women that are actually making decisions and voting on things that impact the state of Colorado, where those align with things that the Boeing company would like to do, then being able to have a forum to talk to them, to meet them, to let them know what we think of upcoming legislation, I think is key. And COBRT has really been at the forefront of that from my view. There's a lot of other organizations, I think, where maybe some of those opportunities exist, but COBRT and the way Jeff has been able to really put some momentum and energy behind that aspect of it, I think that's what really drew me and definitely was willing to come participate on the board. Yeah.
And I have to agree with you on that. Again, another shameless plug here for another event we're having, and it's our 5th annual legislative reception. That one's personally my favorite. It's we have a warehouse here, so it's at our location that we hold that every year, and that's in November. And so it's just legislators and state leaders in different industries across Colorado, and it's kind of a mom and pop's drinking in your garage type of vibe.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, you just come to our warehouse, and we've got drinks and hors d'oeuvres, and it's schmoozing, but it's a good time. It's definitely my favorite personally that we do. So that is in November. But I agree with you. I think one of the things that Jeff is really good at is honing in on those relationships and seeing opportunities for other people, right?
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Yeah.
I think the other piece, too, is also other business leaders that are not related to aerospace. So there's a variety of them, whether it's energy, whether it's agriculture, whether it's small manufacturing. Meeting and talking with those individuals that I otherwise would not get the opportunity to do is value added, because then it helps from our community standpoint of me going back and talking to our employees about opportunities to get involved in their communities, whether it's just a volunteer event. It doesn't have to be something that Boeing or an aerospace company sponsored. If one of these other individuals or companies are sponsoring a community event where they live, there's no reason why we shouldn't be made aware of that so our employees can give back to the community. And that's a huge piece that I kind of have here in Colorado. STEM is one area that I'm very, very passionate about, and the other is community involvement, being able to give back to the community that we live in. And in Colorado, there's a lot of opportunity to do that.
There is a lot. One of my favorite things, I've been here about 8 years myself, so your second stint in Colorado, we sort of coincide there. One of the things that I've seen over the years that I've been here is how good we are at collaborating with each other across industries and within the same industries. Even if you, one of the big things I hear from the manufacturing partners is competimates, right? And the same thing in the aerospace industry, actually. You know, you have these competimates that you're competing with, but also, you know, if you get a large order, maybe I can send some your way. Or if I know that I don't have the niche market for you, but my competitor does, and they can do a better job, I can send you there, and you're going to think of me. Absolutely,
absolutely. When we look at what our global engagement needs to be in the state of Colorado, we have what we identify as 3 pillars. One is the environment, and the environment is big in Colorado, so that fits right in with bigger Boeing in that pillar. The second is STEM, which I already said that I'm passionate about. I could go on for hours about that. And the third is our veterans. So again, Colorado has a huge veteran population, especially in the South. So being exposed to those companies, both aerospace and non-aerospace, state and local leaders, like I've already said, as a part of COBRT, I just see is broadening now my aperture in being able to know what things are going on, what efforts are coming down with state legislation at the national level. Again, community involvement, volunteer opportunities for our employees. So I'm really looking forward to working as a part of the COBRT board and being exposed to those opportunities.
Yes, and we're happy to provide those opportunities. You've mentioned STEM a couple times. That we have a partnership also with the Colorado Workforce Development Council, which is big for us. And we know that a lot of different industries, aerospace included in this, they're working on opening up more curriculum, right? And we're looking at more apprenticeships than ever these days, and how businesses can get involved with schools, right? Because so you are looking for certain skills that you'd like people to graduate with, and they're working specifically on those skills to get you the right employees.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been to a couple of those workforce development, and it really is changing the way the kids are learning now. You know, if you think about all the innovation that's happened, technology, but you go back to the schools, and for the most part, we're still learning like I did, and my parents and my grandfather 50, 80 years ago. You sit in a classroom and a teacher talks at you. Why haven't we made the transition to a much more current way of learning? Because not all kids learn the same.
Right.
So you're right. Some of the programs that I've seen in Colorado's been at the forefront, I can tell you, in some of the other boards that I serve on, in passing legislation for computer science classes, STEM accreditation, apprentices you've already talked about. I can tell you that when you go to other states, those programs do not exist. So Colorado really is at the forefront of those activities. So, and that's exciting. If I look at the pipeline of engineers that Boeing's going to need, having curriculum, identified computer science, all those other kind of activities, even though we're predominantly a 4-year college degree, I think there are some areas that certifications, IT, cybersecurity, as we talked about, those type of kids that are coming out of school and learning those type of skills are directly and can directly impact some of the work that we're doing across bigger Boeing. Maybe not just in Colorado, but in Seattle, Oklahoma City, Huntsville, where a lot of our other programs in manufacturing happen.
Yeah, I actually would love to thank you for joining me today. It has been a pleasure talking to you, your wealth of knowledge, but also we appreciate your board membership, and we are looking forward to working with you throughout the entire year next year and seeing what we can get done with you.
Well, thank you, Alex.
Yeah, so like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Check out this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.